record to the cloud. So you wonder, is that they changed the name. It used to be recording to the cloud, and now it says recording in progress. It makes it seem like it had been in progress. I don't know. Well, the nice thing about the piece is that there's not that many elements. So I feel like it's going to be a really manageable kind of a manageable game that we've got going. So just superficially, it looks as though there's the main subject is the flower that's in the middle. And I mean, it is so close to kind of dead center, like where the sprout is coming out of. It might be slightly left. I don't know. I think this might be actually dead center of the entire picture. And I've heard people,
looks like it.
Painters have come into my class and like they'll study with other people and they say, no, you should never put something in the center of the picture. And as if it was like kind of like it was played out or done too many times. But there's something interesting going on with how he does place this in the exact center, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel cliche, at all. So anyway, so as far as the flowers go, we have these two flowers that are kind of competing for first place. This is number one, of course, and then this is, the slightly younger brother. They're almost like twins. The twin that's born 7 minutes ahead, and then they always have a one up on the other one for their whole lives, and it turns into like a whole dynamic. I feel like these two are very similar, but there's clearly the dominant and then the second, the number two. And then there is a blossom, there's a bud back here. So the flowers, I think there's like a 1, 2, and then a 3 that could be even, submerged. It could be like slightly under the water. In black and white, it might be hard to tell. So we have this flower hierarchy, a pair, they could be best friends too. I mean, it doesn't have to be a tension between them. There's a first one and a second one, and it'll be interesting to see because, this one is larger and it is perfectly symmetrical, where this one has, a little shadow on this side, and it seems to be overlapped by the water lily, not the water lily, the lily pad. So, and it's not centrally located, and it's smaller and it's lower. So as far as hierarchy goes between these flowers, this guy is perfectly symmetrical, and it is, almost levitating, and it's not overlapped by anything. We'll get into like what the form actually is, and we'll probably even be able to determine, more of like a caste system between these two. But the fact that it's overlapped, the fact that it's lower on the rectangle, the fact that it's not symmetrical, all of those, and the petals are a little irregular, that makes this one the principal dancer, and this is the supporting. Yeah, so that's like kind of like the hierarchy flower, like 1, 2, and then this very small third blossom. It's almost you can't even kind of consider that a flower. If anything, it's almost like a precursor to these two, so it could be like almost a passage of time, or what these were coming from, the origins of these flowers.
However, if you look at the colored one, you see that there are 2 buds underwater that are emerging.
There's 2 buds. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at that. Well, now in the color, initially I was saying that this was the number one. And now if I'm looking at the color version, look how much brighter and bolder and thicker and more high intensity. I mean, this has got bolder blues, it's got bolder reds, it's got bolder yellows, it's got thicker, light, higher contrast paint. So yeah, as far as the painting goes, I'm leaning towards this guy being the, as far as the value design, this guy's got it clearly. But in terms of paint application and color intensity, it's the one on the right. So yeah, there's definitely a conversation going on, back and forth between these flowers. And then Grace, what you were talking about here, I mean, look at that. Yeah. So there's the bud that looks like it has gently emerged. This little pyramidal cap to that bud has popped through the surface of the water, and then this one is still underneath. Wow. Now, what do you think of that one? You think that one's too? Think that's a little one too? So there's 1, 2, and then maybe a third one up there.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's
Maybe,
the
but
stem.
that could be the stem too.
That's the stem of the leaf, I think,
The
because all the
Ah,
stem
stems
to
are
that
going
leaf.
like
Yeah,
this.
I agree. I agree. Oh, nice. But still, that's the other thing. I mean, if we're looking at, this is the size of my finger. I mean, we're looking at images that are this size, in books. I mean, they're useful, but man, when you really get a printout that is, now look at that. I mean, did we get the conversion to 100, 100? What's 100 centimeters? Is that like
it's a
30
meter,
inches?
so it's almost a yard, almost 3
Yeah,
feet.
so it's 3 feet. So
By-
it's 2 feet by 3 feet, it looks like. So if that's 2 feet by 3 feet, this is 1 foot. So this is exactly half size, which is cool. It's a nice size to work with. And honestly, compared to what's on the screen, what I'm seeing on my screen is probably life size. Because you guys can't tell, but on my screen, everything's blown up. It's zoomed in on. So depending on the type of your screen or whatever. But yeah, what I'm looking at my screen about the size. Yeah, it's just about twice as big, and it's got to be life size. It's so great. So that means if I zoomed in even further, we would get larger than life without the reflections. Come on, yes. Look at that. Look at that. You can see the weave of the canvas through these scrapes. Hold on, let me prop this up. Actually, I'm not going to prop it up. I'm going to zoom down because that's what it's kind of like the promise of this project is those brush strokes. I hope it's close enough. I hope it's not too close. It might be just slightly. Almost. There we go. This has got to get it. There it is. So what I was pointing at is
That's really something.
you can actually see the weave of the canvas
Yeah.
through where it's scraped. And I wonder if he scraped it or if he had some, like, sometimes if you have, I mean, I had a teacher, he was really, really loony. He made such dark, he made such dark stuff. But he was so informed and so smart about his materials. And he would say he'd never throw any brushes away. Even if they were even if they had paint dried in them. And sometimes you can have paint that dries up in the end of the brush, but only in some parts. And then if you go and use it, it chunks up. And these scrapes that are happening right in here, I don't think he did it with his palette knife. Doesn't it feel like that's the brush stroke?
Yeah, they all the petals feel like they've been done by the same brush.
Yeah, and they all have those little passages.
Wow, it looks like a lantern.
Mm. So I don't know. I mean, where's this brush? This stroke, this blue stroke that, it's like the underpainting is kind of blending into the white. Do you see that right there? I love that one. And then, the way that he added the white or the yellow and the white, and then this pink note came on top. See how he created that V shape? Like this is a petal that comes in front of, the pollen and the pistil or whatever is in the middle of that flower. It feels like a flame. It feels so much like a flame.
Beautiful.
And, how you would paint a candle flame is no different than how you would paint the middle of that flower. I mean, that's what's so neat about the paint strokes is that the paintings can only be made up of paint strokes. So it's like these marks have to be put into context in order to be able to be read as a flame or as a flower or a flame. Oh, look at this space. Look at this purple space between these two flowers. Let me slide this over. Let's have a look at the other one. Totally different strokes. I mean, they're just, there's none of the streaks that exist in this first one show up in the second one. These feel clumpy. It's almost like he mixed, that is really rough in here. There's all these little caverns. I wonder if how many times he painted it. Very, very high pigment, high ratio to pigment to medium. Where these are like lots of pigment, little medium. Here, these are, more medium, and that's why they feel, wetter and juicier. And this one feels really clumpy. Yeah, I mean, in order to paint these, you got to mix your own paint, or at least know what to mix into the paint. Yeah. One of the things that's really interesting too to look is to follow kind of 360 degrees, and it's easy to fall in love with the flower because it's in high contrast and it's thick strokes. But how it's framed out, this flower feels like it has some dimension to it because it's got that dark note. So there's a dimension to that one, there's a dimension to this one, there's a dimension to this one down here. And then, I mean, look at how there's like this yellow and yellow green, trickling on, he's painting the water lily. Don't get me wrong. He's painting the leaf of the lily pad, but he's also painting a silhouetted edge to our flower here, where he's using this blue for the water. And it's called, evening effect. So I suspect that, it's getting dark, and these flowers, so all the darks are darker, but the brilliance of these flowers are still able to be, seen. And I feel like I've seen that before. It doesn't look, it looks like everything else is dark except for the flowers. He's having a lot of fun. We can talk about we got to touch on the overall design of the lily pads and the flowers and how they fit in the rectangle. But then, then every element, once it's well designed, becomes like a painting within a painting. So this is, he's just having a blast with the layering of the strokes, the thin, dry stuff. He's just tickling the leaf. Especially at the end. I mean, this is like all these notes are like done like very last, and they're very dry. So he drags it across the top, and because the paint has been layered and built up, that there's these little peaks and valleys. There's like peaks of the paint, and then that when he drags that dry brush across, the white just grabs onto the top of those mountains, basically snow capping, the miniature mountain ranges of the topography of the paint. Yes. Yeah, and I suspect that there's going to be a hierarchy. So now this is so random, but I'm just going into the lower left-hand corner, and it's so, I mean, you can see so easily the strokes in these lily pads and how thick they are, and the play of like the colors and the thickness. But then you go into just the water, and the water is just very smooth, very abstract. In fact, you can't even, the brushstrokes are so thin that they're difficult to read. Now, it's not that they don't have vectors, it's not that they don't have directions. And let me just show you what I'm talking about here. Do you see this curvature? There's this really beautiful arching that basically functions like a vignette. So he does vignette the corners. I mean, this corner is clearly darker, this corner gets darker, but he gives you, he's painting the surface of the water with these strokes that make this bow. It's like a boomerang, on that side, and all the values are very close together, and the brush strokes are super smooth. So it feels more like a semi-transparent surface of the water. And probably if it is a reflection, it's a reflection of a night sky at dusk. So when we're thinking about the water, it's the water's acting sort of like a mirror, and depending on if it's in shadow, where there's shadow, you can look through the water into the bottom, where that's kind of happening in here. But then in other parts, when you look at reflections, it acts like a mirror, or glass, like a mirror, and reflects, the environment, whether it's trees in the sky or clouds in the sky. And the reflections of the water is what, Monet was, totally exploiting as well. So I suspect that there's kind of two ranges. There's the part of the water here, it's darker, where you can look and see the root system, like you can see all the stems of the lily pads. The plant really is, submerged, and the leaves float on the top as well as the flowers. But over on this side, I think he's getting, it's a nighttime sky. Not that we're seeing any stars or anything, but I think it feels like it is a, dusk. So also on this one, we have what's called an aerial perspective. We are above looking down at a flat surface. So it's a flat tabletop. The water is a level tabletop. We can see through it, whatever. But these lily pads, the lower you are on the rectangle, the closer those lily pads are to us. So this is, this lily pad's closest, and it's sort of like clouds in the sky. When you look up the clouds, the higher they are on the rectangle. Okay, what if I turn this upside down? Yeah, if I turn this upside down and pretended these were clouds, it doesn't work as effectively. But with clouds, the closer they are, the higher they are on the rectangle. But clouds are strange in the sense that you can have a huge cloud that's far away, and you can have a small cloud that's close. So the scale, if all clouds are the same size, like billiard balls, or, like even like houses are generally the same size. So the closer you are, they're bigger, and the further away they get, the smaller they are. And that's how, people are in pictures: big, closer, small, far away. But when you have things that are, irregular sizes, like clouds, that principle doesn't come into effect. So you're having not a scale issue, you're having an aerial perspective issue. And so even though this lily pad initially is kind of smaller than, the ones behind it, it's still technically closer, and it's just a smaller lily pad, and that's okay. I mean, this has got to be a pretty darn big lily pad back here to be that large and to be, that far away. It's a relatively narrow space, so it's not like you're getting huge distortions, but it's distant enough. Okay, so that's good. So just knowing as we draw these, the lily pads I think we'll probably start from closer and kind of move back. I think we should start with our principal, our main flowers, and then kind of work around there. But we should know that, the way our eye moves us, back into space, the orientation of those lily pads are going to matter. And other important things to know is that, we should probably look at this up, but the lily pad itself, from what I can tell, is does this. So in a weird way, it's going to have a gazing direction. So this is the lily pad seen, straight up above. So when it's seen from the side, at some way, it's, the lily pad that is the base for our two flowers, this one is sort of looking to the right, the arrow points this way. Whereas this one, it's pointed, down and to the left. This one, it's hard to tell, maybe looking up into the left, down into the right. This one is up into the right here. This one is, down into the right. So we have to get like this sense. And then this is like a little bit of both. I guess maybe it looks up this way. So you almost want to think about it like hands on a clock, and, where these vectors bring our eye, is gonna matter. But they are ellipses. They are definitely ellipses. And so there seems to be this split on one, and then a divot on the other. So we have to kind of determine, is this the split or is this the divot? So the stem on this back one, the stem comes up this way. And then, this is the split, and the stem is right here. It goes to the middle and then, goes under there. The stems are really gorgeous. So we're kind of seeing the side view, it looks like, of this plant. It looks like the plant is, rooted down here and is springing up into the left. I wonder if that has to do with, how deep the water is. I'm not sure. Valley View Farms has these. They have a really beautiful pond, man-made pond.
Have you been to Longwood Gardens?
Yeah, they have also. I mean, that's spectacular.
They have lily leaves the size of carpets. Enormous.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it looks like you can practically stand on them.
Yeah.
You can on the big one. It's known for that, the Victoria Regia, the one that has edges that stick.
Yeah, that's like a little shelf.
Really? It
You
can
actually
take the
stand on
weight?
it.
I think so. I'd never try it. But
No.
Yeah,
No, thank you.
yeah. Unless you want to get, unless you don't mind getting a little wet. Yeah, but they're huge. Okay, so I think we should. I'm going to go back to. I think we should kind of sketch it off of the black and white, and just kind of get our positioning loosely, and then we can kind of come back in and detail these. Should we work on should we work with color pencils or black and white chalk? Do you have gray paper? I feel like if we had gray paper and we had black and white, even if you just use pencil and white chalk, it might be really nice to use the white chalk as little accents on top. And the reason I love graphite, or one of the reasons I love graphite and charcoal for that matter, is that the material can be manipulated on the surface. And same with oil. I mean, oil paint, you can, because it takes so long to dry, you can paint it and smooth it out, and then make it thinner, make it thicker, smooth it out, hit it with a rag. It's very, it's very malleable. And the graphite and the charcoal are also, it's just pigment, powdered pigment on a surface, so it can be, manipulated as well. And they're different properties. But getting the, I think the key to this, I mean, just look at this corner here. I mean, this is a major section. This is actually 25% of our picture right here. 25% of the painting is what you're seeing right now. And it is a very smooth, very gradual, not without directional strokes, but very calm tone. And graphite, I think, graphite or charcoal, you can get these effects, but it's a relatively dark value. So that's nice. I mean, so we can go a little bit heavy. So yeah, I might have, this goes over here. Let me see if I can move you all over here. Yeah, drawing by 10 o'clock, that's pretty good. I'll zoom out even more.
A light gray and a darker gray.
Yeah.
Which do you think would be better, the darker gray or the lighter gray?
With the paper?
Yeah.
I say darker.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go darker, just because by the darker it goes, the brighter your flowers will be. The white chalk will be more contrasty. Good morning, Stacy.
Hey. Oh,
How you feeling?
I feel better, thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Black
chalk.
Good All right.
boy. It's water lily day. Water lilies. Yes. Okay, good. Yes. You guys want to see a cool religious piece I made? Well, we'll wait till people come back. I did I was making Easter cards for my nieces. And so I did a resurrection piece.
Trevor, I don't have any dark paper, so I'm just gonna use white.
Just use white. Just
Yeah.
use white. Here's my Easter card for my nieces.
Ah,
Oh.
It's a view from the tomb.
Oh.
I kind of stole the composition from an Easter card that I got, and then I taught it to my homeschool group, and I just did it so much better. I took all these awesome ideas from this card and just ran it through the Trevor filter, and it was really good. And I'm like so happy with it. I did first one in black and white on with black and white pencil, and then for the kids class we did it again, and I did the color pencils, and I was so happy. So the other one I turned into a card. This one is I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. I probably should send it to someone, but it's like the whole width of the paper. So, and I don't want to fold it, so I don't even have envelopes that could fit it, but we'll see. We shall see. What color is this? Excuse me for 1 second. There they are. Okay. Oh man, I'm not nervous. Okay, so this is going to be the width of my picture. So Stacy, coming on here, we haven't found much. We haven't discussed a whole lot, but one of the things we did do, we kind of determined that this flower, the bigger of the two, is almost dead center. So as I start this picture, I'm kind of getting oriented in my space on the screen, and all of these, there's no white. Are you kidding me? Okay, whatever. All right, so I'm actually going to sketch this flower so loosely. So what we're trying to do, everybody, is to try to get a very gentle, simple placement of all of the elements. There's not that many, so there's only lily pads and flowers, and then background. And the background is, like Stacy, what I was saying is, it can be both, transparent water, like looking through to the bottom of the pond, but it can also be reflective, like it's reflecting an evening sky or a dusk. So in my mind up here, this is going to be a reflection of the sky, whereas down here, we're kind of getting the bottom of the pond, where you can see the stems going through. Now I'm also picking this up. I feel, do you guys see this logarithmic spiral? It feels like there's a spiral it starts up here and spiraling down into the middle here. Anyway, just the way that this arch, if you were to start it off screen and then continue it, it might lead us, it might, wrap our eye back into our center location. But yeah, we're going to get to detail. We're going to get to come in and do all kinds of details as best we can. So if I were you all, I would try to draw big. Because when we zoom in on each part, each lily pad, we'll be able to kind of like profile. We will be able to dig into that, and with this idea of paintings within paintings. So I'm going to try and sketch the whole. And the other reason I love it is that it's not going to be that difficult of sketching. The elements are the same, they're just in slightly different orientations. Yeah, so it's not, the design is going to be strong, but it's not, this picture anchors on color and paint texture. But it's not that the values aren't in line. I mean, the flowers are highest contrast, the lily pads are second contrast, and there's going to be a contrast hierarchy of lily pads too. So let's just see if we can place these things, and we'll go from there. All right, so here's my middle, and I'm going to draw at least the beginning of my blossom as a bowl. So there's the middle of the blossom, and then these petals are kind of almost going to make this bowl shape where the petals radiate out. I am thinking of I'm not thinking of height width ratio yet, but be aware that this is wider. The flower is wider than it is tall. And I would argue probably not by much, but still wider than it is tall. The lily pad that's in front of it gives us this nice base, and it is kind of a horizontal. And I think that lily pad is going to be largely horizontal. Not that it's not going to be an ellipse, because it does have to be an ellipse. But as the horizontal anchors our first flower, the lily pad, cuts down, and then that angle is going to be kind of the step down to our second blossom. And as the first blossom feels very oval to me and rounded and curvy, our second blossom, to me, I'm picking up more of a cube. So I'm seeing this back edge of the block here, and then the side of the block. So if I were to continue this forward, there's my cube. And of course that cube, isn't like a cube. It has to be, it has to be like softened up into petals. But I think the form, the geometric form concept that he used for that flower, I'm going to argue is a cube, which is a beautiful contrast, to our first one, which would be, this egg or this rounded bowl shape. You can imagine how the bowl runs, this ellipse that links up all of the tips of the petals, whereas the tips of the petals here are linked by the cube. Awesome. All right, we're moving. All right, so then, and Stacy, just a quick thing. I was saying that each one of these, say you do build a lily pad, the lily pad is going to have a height width ratio. So where is the end relative to our second flower? Where is the end relative to our first flower? And then what I think I've been able to figure out, and I could be wrong, but there seems to be a slice in the lily pad, and then a divot, and they seem to be opposite one another. So there's a little divot here on the right side, and then there's the split, and in the middle of that split, is where the stem would be. Now I'm just sketching this. It's not there. The stem is not there, but the stem is below on the bottom of the pond and like growing up. And there's it's like a tether. It's like a kite. The only thing about these is they're like kites. Instead of floating on top of the gusts of wind, they're floating on the meniscus or on the surface of the water. But these directional vectors, like the split, kind of gives and offers the gazing direction for the lily pad. I had a figure class yesterday in midday for some high school kids, and all the poses, because we go off of this internet, it's called Croquis Cafe. If anybody's interested in figure drawing, Croquis Cafe, it's online, it's out of New York. They have really good models. The only problem is that our TVs are horizontally oriented, and 99% of figure drawing classes 90% of all figure drawing classes are basically begin with standing poses, and that's how everybody learns. Standing poses don't work that well with horizontal rectangles on the screen. So the only downside I've been able to find is that for the beginner, there's not a lot of just standing contrapposto poses. For the advanced student, the poses are fantastic and the models are also fantastic. I highly recommend Croquis Cafe. It was free for the first year or whatever, and then it's turned into subscription service, but it's, you know, inexpensive and well worth every penny. What I was saying with these kids is that whenever a pose is complex, you've never seen it before, and there's a lot of foreshortening, rely super heavily on straight lines, because the straight lines can be measured. They have an angle that can be calculated, whether, you know, I'm looking at this angle right here where there's that, you know, the back corner, you know, this one, that to that, and then another vertical. I mean, he's building these lily pads out of a series of like straight line vectors. And I think it's going to be a lot less frustrating, and we'll be able to relate more of the lily pads together geometrically by understanding this relatively limited number of directions. Now, we have a limited number of directions with one lily pad. How is that repeated? But we don't know, because we'll discover where some of these angles seem to be repeating when we get into more, you know, more objects. Okay, so we have this connection point between, you know, this, I guess you'd call it like 430 position of the lily pad that is overlapped by our initial lily pad. So we've got our little split. So we're gonna look for that V shape, and just incredible. I mean, when you know, you don't see it necessarily until you start drawing, but I mean, so many straight lines, so many horizontals. Landscapes stress the horizontal. Each one of these lily pads is going to be wider than it is tall. So the width and the level nature of water, you know, it makes sense that you would be stressing, you know, that form. So look at the back right corner of our lily pad and the front left corner. You know, that's an enclosure. This horizontal here, this horizontal here, you know, just to the left of our divot. And then the angle back in space. And then a vertical again. So he is not skimping on verticals or horizontals. But there's another horizontal. Amazing. So, and there is, you know, at least design-wise and looks like even color-wise, you know, a connection between the split in the back and the divot in the front. You know, where the lily pad ends and the water begins, you know, that's your guess. So what I'm pointing out here is it looks as though there's even a little bit of a third dimension on this front part of the lily pad. Now, I don't know if that's true, or perhaps the lip of that lily pad is underwater and the part that's the brightest is above water. We'll be able to discover more answers, I think, when we look at the color and are able to kind of like zoom in on that. There's just a quick little enclosure that happens between the far side of our lily pad here and this muted one. So there's this little, and this is where you can kind of run your horizontals. The bottom of this lily pad here lines up with loosely the split in this one. So the bottom of that lily pad is here. The top of this muted lily pad you come across, it's lined up with the split on the other one. Wow, good for him. And then you get the curvature. So this lily pad looks like it brings us right off screen. So I know where the right side of my picture is, you know, now relative to the size of my blossoms. I'm kind of going one-to-one. You know, where is the edge of this lily pad relative to the edge of that lily pad? Well, I don't think they quite kiss, but they're pretty close. So I'm feeling good about that placement. There are there are muted stems that are happening in here. Might as well get those. And before we get up to the blossom, let's round out these lily pads in the beginning. So I feel confident that we started from our first two, we worked our way kind of the right, and putting this muted lily pad in here is important because now we know where the edge of our rectangle is. Now that we've got the width of our rectangle, we want to get the top, the bottom, left, and the right, and then we can kind of we can move from there. This is a gutter. There's a gutter. It's like a stream, an estuary. It's a little passage, between our second lily pad and the one that's below it. So you can think about the space between. And now that we know that there's verticals and horizontals, those are the ones that are really easy to identify. So when one doesn't have it, how long is the back? What is that angle? How far off of the vertical? How far off of the horizontal is it? And then you become basically an angle measurer without using any numbers. I think this is supposed to be the split back here. And you can push your notions of truth. You know what I mean? Like you can imbue a certain amount. Again, we're not working with colors at the moment. So what some of our hunches at this point may be replaced with, observational fact when we switch over. Yes. Okay, so now I'm just measuring the space between these with my mind's eye, and then the space between our lily pad. Wow, that angle is kind of important. Yeah, linking up. These two lily pads seem to be on this same angle, and it all meets up on that corner. Great. There seems to be like a grid forming. So here's the bottom of the picture. And now I just hope that I have enough room on our left side. This is a beautiful intersection where these lily pads kiss on this left side. And you see the split and you see the water between, and then the lily pad, the side of this lily pad just, nestles up right up against that edge with, touching, but with water, a little passage of water separating. Straight lines up, straight lines across, straight line down, straight line up, straight line down. There's a part of me that wants to make the whole ellipse. Imagine if we just made the whole ellipse just one height width ratio, flat, wide. And these feel like I feel like two beans almost. There's like a rounded bean here, another rounded bean here. It goes back to this. It's really easy to round off a curve. Round off a straight line. It's really hard to straighten out a curve. And by coming in first with that oval, I lose a lot of structure. And I'm just kind of going against my tendency to begin with the oval. That I kind of proved myself wrong, because now I have to go heavier. See how heavy these lines are? Because I'd initially made an oval. I am not opposed to some of this directional flow. You can almost use these directions and then my measurement from this lily pad to the edge of the picture. Wow, I lucked out here. There's the side. All right, so I've got my right side, I've got my left side, I've got my bottom. And now I'm gonna work now from my flowers. I'm gonna work back into space. And there's only 3 more to go, which is wild. It's also wild to see how few are actually overlapping. I think that might be because it's the nature of the lily pads too. Lily pads don't, it would not make sense for them to overlap. I mean, leaves function like solar panels, and you don't want to, one solar panel obstructing another solar panel is not efficient. But this is where we have this big backing. I mean, this big framework. So we've got our flowers, and we want to get oriented with relative to the flowers. So where does the left side exit our flower? It's like probably 11 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock on that side. I'd say 1 or 2 o'clock relative to the second flower. And we're gonna wrap up really quickly, and we'll get this, the real prominent far side of the pizza that's been removed. So there's this lily pad, and we have this little chunk taken out where the split happens. I think I might have made it too wide. And then behind that is our teardrop blossom that has I can't wait to draw this pyramid. There's the teardrop blossom, but then the water line sections off the pyramidal top of that blossom. And then that's where our stem happens. It's darker or lighter, actually, technically lighter as it's up at the top, and then it passages or disappears through the steepness of the depth of the water. And then there's this secondary one. Stacy, before you got on, we looked at the color version, which is actually a poster. So if you look at the size of my finger here, the blossoms are smaller than my fingernail. And then the reverse of this picture, the reverse of this is an actual poster. And we figured out that it's exactly half size. So, which is really big. I mean, that's a lot of detail for a photograph. So fortunately, and since we've been on this little Monet kick lately, I figured we'd look at his signature subject of the water lilies. Okay. Yeah, the balance between these straight lines and these curved lines is just spectacular. You have this wedge shape here, and then this kind of almost like a Nike symbol arch on this side. And then for the lily pad that is seemingly overlapped by the one we just drew, we have this axis on this side. So it's a horizontal and an angle. So that little elbow there, then offers, the structural, straight lines to balance out the very elliptical, very foreshortened lily pad behind it. And there seems to be a little dark note, which might be just the split. I don't know. I'm just going from, relative to one another, and I'm just copying what he's doing. But even in my picture, you can get a sense of, that there's a plane here, that these lily pads are either resting on a table or, on like a very flat surface that is the top of the water. So like, I'm feeling good. I'm like standing back and looking at my work, and I'm like, do I get that feel that they're all lined up on the same surface? And in a weird way, I feel like mine looks even more unified even than his. And we haven't started any toning or anything, and it might change, but if there's anything that I would really want out of my sketch at this point, is that these lily pads, regardless of their axis, like which way they're looking or whatever, but are they all on that same flat, that same angled plane of the water? And it seems to be happening. It's kind of exciting. Okay, we got another gutter or another estuary this little passage here between this one and this one. And this is, and I haven't been pushing running verticals or anything, but here, like, look, the one we just drew, where's that left side? If I run a vertical down, it seems to like go just left of this intersection here, and then maybe just right of the bottom. So if I run this, you know, does it hit both of those? It does. So my lily pad is left of that vertical. My intersection is to the right, and my silhouetted edge is right here. So those things are not, those things are there for even when you're working in nature. You know, if you're drawing a figure, you know, is the nose on the vertical relative to the belly button and the big toe, like bringing in relationships, composition-wide relationships on verticals and horizontals, as well as diagonals. And we'll look at some other, the main diagonal vector that I linked up was, you know, these three on that angle here. I suspect that all of these lily pads are going to be strung together. Do you see this archway? It's like the middle of this one, this one, this one. I think these on the all the left side ones are going to be linked up on this arch, which, you know, is implied by the flow of the water, the directional flow of the water. But let's just get these last two in here. There's one on the right and there's one at the very back. I've noticed two, which is fun. And I'll just draw it right here for a second. If you think about whatever it's called, like a building or whatever, you would have the base of the tower would be here. And then as it gets higher, you know, these angles become narrower. And then eventually you get to a point where you're at eye level, you know, on this tower. And then eventually you get to a point where the building is bigger than, you know, taller than you. So you are below, you know, looking up at these planes. So this is the ground plane here. This is, you know, above looking down at the ground, above looking down at the ground, above looking down at the ground. And then here you're looking at the underside of the floor. So the higher you are looking down, the more surface area you're going to see. And that it holds true for the lily pads. So this lily pad down here, we're seeing a lot of the top. The height width ratio is different. The lily pad that's in the back, this one that we're going to sketch right now, it's almost like he made it so wide because he made it too tall, meaning the height width ratio changes the further back they go because of our orientation. So this lily pad now is going to be way wider than it is tall. There's my height. Here's my width. And it's got to come wider than the flower. There we go. Turns the corner, comes up, around, little slit between those two heart-shaped wings. And then I think I want to make my front a little rounder coming at us. The lowest point of this lily pad is going to be down here. So everything else has got to go up from there. This guy's looking to the right, and we're offered up a nice, like an echo of it. It's basically the same lily pad, same orientation. It's just cropped. So if this is our edge of the picture, estimating that distance. Yeah, and when I say an echo, I mean the top heart is wider than the lower heart. So top heart, lower, and wider out than the lower. So he did a repeat. And then I'm estimating that it looks like it's slightly less than 1 to the top here. Oh my. I feel like we should feel pretty good about ourselves at this point. Because now the rest is just coloring. The rest is just coloring. We have all of the elements. This one feels like it's floating a little bit, but maybe that's a matter of doing, shading the background. Yeah, I just, these three on the top left, these really meld well to me. I like this, there's this relationship here. I like that these three line up here. I also like that these three link up on the horizontal. Maybe these three link up. Do you think this muted lily pad could be a radiating line? Meaning these two back here line up, these two over here line up, and then these three line up. It's so quiet, that it's almost like the guy behind the guy, this is actually the secret coordinator of all of those. These could be, these three link up relative to an axis point here. Nice. As muted and as toned as these are, this spiral, there's a spiral that happens all the way up here, and then it comes down, it hits the midpoint, and it turns the corner, and then it vignettes our whole left side. This whole left side is vignetted, and then this seems to be toned out, very muted. Now, I don't know what is happening, paint stroke wise, in between the lily pads with the water, but it's definitely darker. Oh, all right, cool. Now it's just about Stacy, let me show you what we've got here too. We looked really hard at the at some of the paint in the beginning. There it goes. How delightful is that? And I think we should kind of just focus in maybe on these two a little bit. And the paint application, it's a lot thicker and a little juicier on the right side. And it's here that's drier and more built up on this side. You can actually see these thick chunks, where here you're seeing like the juicy paint, the wet paint versus dry paint. I really do think it's about wet and dry paint application. Now, I really built this cube along here. I felt pretty confident about that. I'm looking up here. I almost see another cube there. It's like almost like a pyramidal backing, but like a rounded base. Really spectacular. So that's how big my sketch is compared to these guys. How would I do it? Can we even? Or is it even useful? Should I just switch? Now that we did this, should we switch and do it life size? What do you think, Maureen? this folded my paper.
Well, you know me, I draw everything way too big, so
Ah,
I like that size.
I do too.
I mean, no matter how you draw it, we can reduce it to our size.
Right. Let's do the first one. And let's do the first one and see what happens. I'm gonna put in. Looking for my white pencils. I have this great set of colored pencils, but then, oh wait, no, I have another one. Just test this color. Oh, that looks good. That'll be fun. Let me test this color. Oh, look at that. I love this color. I just don't know if it's in the picture.
Oh my gosh, that color's so perfect.
I think it is. Look at that. All right. I'll keep that one. I'll keep the yellow. I think the yellow can be
What color
mixed.
was that? Was that a,
The color pencil?
yeah,
It
was that a
was
lavender?
lavender, grade lavender.
Ah, great.
Stacy, did you order your colors? Stace, did you pull the trigger on that one?
I still haven't, and every day I'm saying, I have to do it. I have to do it. Why haven't I do it? And then
Okay.
I forget,
I'll
and then no, it's not good. I really need to do it.
Okay, so this yellow does not show up. My French gray, I think, is the exact same color as the paper.
Yeah.
my paper is French gray. All right. I'm glad I named it. Sorry. So with the colors too, I think we just gotta, I think I'm just gonna choose 3. I think I'm gonna use my, I got my yellow for the center. I need a white for the background. And then I have my, my like slightly hot pink and then my grade lavender. And I'm just gonna go with that for the flower. Now, the flower is not gonna pop unless it's up against a background. So I've got my, I'm gonna need a deep blue for the water, and then like a kind of a soft neutral green for my lily pad. And part of what's so sweet about Impressionism is we're taught so intensely to do line and to have line be a clear separation between one object and another. And Impressionists they almost like laugh at that. I mean, they really bring that the ambiguity out. And all painters have always been had a certain level of ambiguity, but the Impressionists really push it. So as I'm doing my drawing, quote unquote, or coloring, I'm gonna keep my edges very loose and very soft. I have a gazillion colors and apparently no white. Here's one. Oh. I mean, it's like this is like some kind of joke. Yesterday I was reading I was reading the story of what happened when Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, they go to the tomb, and there's an earthquake that moved the stone off of Jesus's tomb. And when they got there, it was an angel of the Lord was sitting on the rock. He was sitting on it, which is, I've never had that visual in my head before. And I guess he was wearing a robe that was white as snow. I did a little drawing of an angel sitting on this rock, and I had a highlighter and I made the robe pink. I was like, oh man, that was nice, because I didn't realize that I got it wrong. And then I hit it with whiteout. So I repainted this angel robe with whiteout. And honestly, I'm like thinking I might use whiteout, because if I don't have, what am I gonna do if I don't have white pencil?
Now, to it.
Does this one show up?
Yeah.
It does, but it's too yellow. Oh, there's a whole nother tray under here I didn't see. Okay, we're good. Does warm gray show up?
Off.
Does everybody have a white pencil? Can they lend one to me?
I wish. Do you have a cream? Cream is very good too.
Yeah, I mean, it'd have to be warm. Here's a blue one. I don't know, it's just not showing up. I'm an art teacher. I run an art school. Half the lessons have white chalk pencils. Yeah, there's not one on my desk. Okay, let me run downstairs. I can't do this without it. I wish I had known it was going to take so long. I would have called a bathroom break. Actually got one. All right, so I wanted to do the flowers separate, but that would be foolhardy. So we're gonna do the flowers as a pair, and I think we can do this. I think there's enough room to do it. Nice. Okay. Okay, so just so I have enough room, I'm going to start with the top of mine up here. So okay, so here's the geometric peak. You want to find the highest, and I'm not looking at these two bottom. I don't know if this is just like like how they're set up, but both of these flowers seem to have a main structure, and then these two bottom like low petals on either side, low petal, and then this main structure. And I think what is happening is that we're seeing the inside of the petals on the top ring, and then I think supposedly we're supposed to be seeing the outside of the petals on the bottom ring. So help me out if this is how you're seeing it. So I'm seeing the top, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So then this 4th petal is going to come down, and we're going to get to this, the bottom of the bowl, which is right here. And then we're going to swing up to this other side. And so there's 1 tip, 2 tips, 3 tips. So we got 3 petals on the left, 3 petals on the right, and then, this 1 in the middle. And I apologize if I feel like I'm going fast, but I'm thinking quickly because I don't actually know what's right. So 1 small one, this is the big one, and then this is the real big one. Okay, I almost made that side too big. That's okay. And then if we want, we can switch over to that beautiful pink color to do the bottom. It doesn't show up on mine. Let's see. And there's the bottom. It's the lavender. That shows up a little better. All right. And so now we have to get these that run across the front. So there's this silhouetted edge of the top of these petals. So this is the silhouetted edge of the petals along the top receiving the light, and then the front of the bowl. This is the front of the bowl here. So this comes down, we go up in the middle, down, up, down, up, and then they kind of merge in here. So granted, we are living in like an impressionist world where it is a little ambiguous, but it's fudged, but it's not observed. I mean, there is definitely truth in what he's seeing. Like, he's not just making it up, even though he's being very generalized. So I framed out our yellow section by doing the back of the petals in the front of the bowl, and then the inside of the bowl, these white areas. So good, so good. And so now we can kind of, let me do my little tester sheet. Is this the yellow that I chose? No. Is this the yellow that I chose? Yes. Okay, so now we've got the inside of our blossom, which is this combination of the yellow, and whether these, it's the actual petals that are yellow that transition into white. I don't know. I'm leaning towards that's what it is, but there may also be, pollen. There may be like a pistil in the middle. Like, it could be like, I'm not saying it's like a calla lily, but like that big yellow, pistil that's in the center. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards, but I think it's blurred out. So I think it could be. This is the fun thing. I mean, this is why we'll go to Longwood Gardens with a mission to learn these things. Petals, pink and white petals. Looks good. Okay, so now I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to, there's this really important deep, rich red note at the bottom here, which kind of establishes a, this point of contrast. And in the same way that there's water that created these gutters between the lily pads, in his mindset, this is a gutter of water between the two flowers. So it's a little awkward negative space, but it is an important negative space, and it's going to allow us to relate the two flowers together. Cool. So that's so interesting, because as I drew this little purple note, the space between, I by default sketched the this bottom leaf. I'll call them the tangent leaves. So this is a tangent leaf, that's a tangent leaf, that's a tangent leaf, that's a tangent leaf, versus the main structure of the bowl of the leaf, of the petals rather. Okay. So we've got this mass of our other flower. We're gonna get some really juicy paint, so you can almost get into the vibes of the paint stroke with our marks. I mean, all of these little reverse S curves, and then a harsh, sharp V for the right side. Boom. I love how it points. And we're going to come down, reach, achieve this bottom of the bowl. I don't think it would hurt to use our little kind of magenta pink. Just to clarify in our own minds that this is that highlight there. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to my lavender, because we have the back petals, the white, the yellow center, and then the blue or the white petals, the yellow center, and then the lavender petals, lavender, pink, blue. It's a combination. Lavender is red and blue. So tint versions of red is pink, and then the light blue. And that's why I think the lavender is working so nicely for these front petals. And those front petals are gonna, frame off the yellow. So how he painted it, yellow first and then the lavender after that, I'm not sure. We'd have to paint it to find out. But here's the darkest of my yellow center, and the yellow is going to transition out into the white. I love this. Maybe is this too? This might not be pink enough or red enough. I got nice pinks, but I do need to get this. This is like a magenta. These the final notes that he puts down here. There they are. Yeah, and this magenta color seems to be the area that is helping offer contrast within the flower.
Sorry, do you hear the wren outside?
I do. It's so great.
I can mute it.
No, please don't. Because I think your wren is talking to my wren outside my
I
window.
have one here too.
He's so loud.
Right. So here's our tangent petal down at this bottom corner. And that's not going to stand out until we hit up the get the silhouetted edge of the purple and the blue. So it's interesting because I'm going to get to define my flower. By painting the background. I want to find the right one.
Tell you, Trevor, I'm usually very nervous with color, but I'm really liking this.
Good. Yeah, it takes certain pieces to kind of unlock it, I think. But the background, I did buy. What did I buy? No, this was these markers. I bought these blending markers. So I've never heard of blending color pencils. Like you basically buy, it's a whole pencil that you sharpen and everything that is for blending colors. And I just recently, this new set of these tricolors, I'm going to see how it works right here. So when I'm applying the paint up here, I'm anticipating only being able to color, blend 2 or 3 colors together. And the truth is with colored pencils, I'll never be able to get this rich black, not black, but the deep purple that feels like you're going, it's an abyss. There's the abyss of the night sky, there's the abyss of the bottomless ocean. And then this is like the pond that's at night. So, you're looking into, infinity essentially. And the layers of oil paint can offer that, which is that's why oil paint is so great. Color pencils are just going to be able to touch on it. Color pencils, I mean, you could argue in these light areas, I mean, you could argue that that's as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than oil paint. But the water, these purples, these deep colors, you're going to be hard pressed to get that richness. And it's okay. You know what I mean? It's like, we also don't get paint all over the place. So every medium has its advantages and disadvantages.
So I have a technique.
I have a purple and a blue connecting here. And then, sorry, Grace, I'll just say one last thing just so I can follow up on it. This is what's called Blender. It's just called Blender. And this is what the tip looks like. It's like it might actually just be the wax. So let's just see how it blends. Well, that might have been an angel's hand at work there. So it allows me to work the pigment into the valleys. So as I shade it up here, and look at that, I'm not claiming it's exactly the tone, but I mean, it's pretty good. Look at that, look at it go. Here's me defining my edges of my flower.
So my technique question was
Yeah.
about where the white meets the blue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you achieve the feathered effect by moving the blue into the white, or by sweeping the white out into the blue?
Yes, so it would be the former. The blue, the darks just dominate the lights in this medium. In oil paint, the lights, are thicker, are applied thicker and juicier, and they are the last notes, and they dominate the darks. So in oil, the lights dominate the darks here, and then not that you can't paint thick with darks, it's just when you're trying to get the ephemeral, you're trying to get the the ambiguity of a dark zone, painting it thinner gets that. The petals that are just the majesty of the God's creation of a petal in its color, and it's it's almost like it's greasy, sort of. It's like a skin, but there's nothing like it. I mean, there's just nothing like a flower petal. And the only thing that comes close to it would be a nice thick juicy brush stroke. So they're two very different objects with two very different beauty aspects. So in this case, when we're doing color pencils, you would pull that blue in to the white.
Yep. Okay.
So in a way, you'd almost overdo the white. If you wanted the white coming out further, you can always pull the white back.
So you have to establish your white petals first, and then bring in the blue.
Yeah.
Sounds like,
Oh, this is beautiful.
yeah, it really is.
I mean, we gotta be, I mean, it is amazing. Like, even after all this time, it's like, thank you, Claude.
Because I want to be sure to get the little peaks at the tips of the white petals.
Yeah.
I think you can do both ways, you know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it could be.
You can go
probably
back
do.
and do more white on top if you can, you know.
Mm,
It's just whether your white is opaque, if you have that opacity.
yeah. So same question then for like the stem of that flower that's underwater that is kind of a palish blue. Is that, do you do the stem first and then do the blue around it? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I just noticed that. I mean, I'm luckily I'm a little bit thin over here. So there's my magenta. So that should hold up. You know, if I flank it with, and teach the kids, and in my own mind, I'm thinking I've got 3 colors. And one is usually dominant. That makes sense. Or 2 are the main combinations, and then the third one is like an accent.
Okay.
That's just with my color pencils. Okay, let's see how we did up here. And then I can do my magenta up there. Let me try the blender. All right, so I'm going to blend my rich see-through mud up to the stem, maybe even over the stem a little bit. So yeah, this transparent effect of the water is so neat. Did I get it? I got something like it. Darker though. And it appears to go even darker up here, you know, as I'm getting towards the top up here. Is there such thing as a darker purple? There might be. So what I love about what we just did here, granted we don't have, you know, maybe I'll zoom out even a little bit further, but what I've done as far as unintentionally, I wish I had planned on this, but every component of the picture is encapsulated in this little small window. So we have, you know, the light blue, dark richness of the reflection of the sky. We have the dark blue purple, you know, looking through the water. So this is reflections of a dusk on the left, which is an arrangement of blue, a deeper, richer shaded part of the pond that gives you the stems and the blossom underneath. So with both sides of the background, plus the flower and their hierarchy. And then we actually have the background, the foreground and the background, which is the lily pads. So every part of the picture is represented, you know, within this little narrow window. So, you know, to solve those problems together is pretty good, pretty good. And, you know, so then like I was saying before, it becomes a coloring exercise at that point. You know, like we've created the coloring book with our drawing, and now it's a matter of, you know, doing the painting, which, you know, could take, you know, might take a little bit longer, but longer than our class time, but that's okay. I'm hoping to just luck out with my colors. So something tells me that he had a very dark ground. So I'm working on the lily pad in between the flowers, and I'm allowing the background of the lily pad to define the edge of the flowers, like I did with the water on the left and the right. And just so I'm using the green of the lily pad to be the bridge between these two flowers. And now I'm gonna really try to experiment with what colors I do. Again, I'm hoping for 3. I did a kind of a green, which is, you know, a green that it's got combinations of yellow, green, blue, green, and hunter green. And then I mixed a little bit of the sky blue in there. And now I think I'm gonna need the purple or the dark blue again, because I think that's the color that is underpinning the lily pads. I think the lily pads were painted on top of a darker ground in sort of a almost in a Velázquez Spanish style, high contrast. This would be an example of an impressionist high key picture. So this is where, I don't know if you guys remember the conversations we had about last week in terms of the beginning of Monet's career, where he walked the line between the old school and the new school, the old school being high contrast pictures with low chroma, and then he combined them to have high chroma, high contrast. And they felt awkward because with all those bright colors and then with white and black existing in the same scene, it was just, they were disjointed. So, to decide on a picture, whether it's going to be high colors, but relatively low contrast, or having a picture that's high contrast and relatively low colors, or high colors and low contrast, here, he has pushed the maximum. So there's no black in here at all. The highest contrast area is this deep purple right here, right up against the light. So this is where he's really, it's a masterpiece. I mean, it is a masterpiece of the style that he had pioneered. And it's so interesting to see this. And these are late. I mean, these are the last 30 years. Look at the, I'm nerding out a little bit, because I think when we get into the lily pads, you're going to find the theme and variation is just incredible. But this sleeper lily pad over here, that I was saying might have been like actually the unifying component, but like kind of in the background. Look at that red glow that he gives around it. I mean, in terms of color contrast, these are really rich greens and a really high contrast red, but all the values are so close together. It's a color contrast versus a value contrast. Really, really beautiful stuff. Like really beautiful stuff. And savvy, he's just like, seemingly, it's like, so he's like pretending like it's not a big deal. Even though I think that lily pad anchors the whole piece. It is the central axis. These two lily pads, they echo our flowers. So in the same way that our flowers are brothers or sisters, whatever you want to call them, so are our lily pads here. So this is 2 flowers nearly identical, nearly like a wider range of treatment. So the same flower, but painted different. These are the same lily pad. And I'm interested to see if they are in fact painted different or if they have the same program. I like this little tickle of dark green in the middle, the reflections, off of the wet, you can imagine the wet or greasy top of the lily pad reflecting, that sky. They could even be reflecting some of the flower. And I think some of these, the light notes on top of here. Interesting. So Maureen, what I'm thinking about for yours, you'd have, kind of a dark, rich background. And then you'd have this like light midtone, but, shade the whole thing. And then, put in all the dark notes and then take a section of eraser and just like wipe, the way that he painted these last notes on here to get the highlights, you would actually erase with like a fine tipped edge of the eraser, add a light tone over the whole thing and then pull out some of those highlights. It'd be gorgeous.
I liked mine until I switched to colored pencils.
Did you?
I
thought you were-
kind of
thought you were doing-
lightened it and switched to colored pencils, and I wished I'd have just stuck with my pencil.
I know.
I think I ruined it.
Oh,
Oh, well, I think it's worth it to keep going, but it is also kind of I mean, I've made the mistake so many times, and it's just, it has to do with the colors of the color
Yeah.
pencil, waxy pigment. And when you compare them next to graphite, which is basically a grayish alloy,
Yeah,
like the muddy metal just they don't vibe with
no, they
the
don't.
waxy, shiny colors.
So this is why I'm giving you a heads up. I'm not showing mine today, so just
Oh,
not
no,
doing it.
oh,
no.
you never know what happens. I'm
There's
finding,
great value in what we think of as mistakes. I bet there's a real breakthrough in there.
I'm also discovering that these chalky pencils, you almost can go back in and put a little bit on top of the previous color.
Yeah,
So it's kind of forgiving in that way, to my
Hmm.
surprise and delight.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the boundaries can be discovered. I don't know if that made any sense. But what you think are the rules aren't always the rules, and
You're right.
you just have to figure them out by going too far. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose.
yeah. I'm a loser.
Nah.
Ooh, I'm seeing some light blue in. I did the lavender at first for the front of my petals, and the sky blue that I used for the lily pads. I'm seeing it in here too. So that's kind of a nice. That was a good discovery. All right, let's see.
In the petal, you're seeing blue in the petals?
In these ones, yeah, in here.
Yeah.
There's like that sky blue. I'm gonna blend. Is this the blender? No, it's the white. Eek. This is the blender. Oh, that was ball. That was either courage or folly, but I just darkened. I souped up my contrast. Better for I saw that the shadow of that petal. There's this look at this little triangle of green that is the link up between all of these elements. So it's the water, it's the two flowers, and the lily pad. They're all in this little triangle underneath there. You see it? Oh, so good. Yeah, these little eddies, these little small whirlpools of shapes between positive shapes, negative shapes. I used to feel frustrated. When I was in art school because I always wanted to just paint objects, like an object. And they're like, you have to fill out the whole rectangle. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, fill out the whole rectangle? It's like, I painted the object. And it's like, it's the object and it's the space next to the object and it's the space between that object and another object, and it's the distance and it's what's in front of it and it's what's behind it, and all of that is you need to take pleasure in, or else you'll just be drawing objects on a page, which is not bad. I mean, that's good, but there's so much joy and pleasure in the spaces between the spaces, the objects themselves, and then the spaces that they create in between them.
Mhm.
And when there can be huge massive, like if you think about it, like the lily pad is huge. It's like the dominant subject of the picture, but then there's this little teeny section of it in between those leaves. So it's almost like it's like the smallest little lily pad moment. So I did a green, and you remember the combination. So there's green, and then there's the blue, and then there's the purple. And then I'll blend it. Zoom out.
When you're blending the background, like the blue, into the valleys, can you, how much more pigment can you put on top of it once you're blending it? You know what I mean? Does the paper still take more of this?
Yeah, so that's the thing about pastels. Pastels, you can keep layering. You spray it, you keep layering, spray it, keep layering. You can layer 5, 6 times more. And you know, it's a process of building, of like, you know, what can take on the paper can just hold a lot more. And they're just, it's raw pigment and glue essentially, and it all sticks. Now and it's almost like the pigment and the spray varnish and the spray, the fixative, that becomes like the texture that you work into. Whereas here, you're essentially, you want to think about the waxy paper as almost like a glaze. So the paper, the paper will ultimately turn into the hood of your car. Like you know, it's like a smooth metal waxy finish that all the pigments smashed down. I mean, not all the pigment, all of the fibers of the paper are smashed down, and there's nothing but a wax coating. Imagine trying to draw on top of a candle. Yeah, you can't do it.
Is that wax being desirable? Is that what we want?
That's what color pencil is. It's basically like crayon. It's not as waxy as crayon, but it's in between crayons and pastels. That's what color pencils are. And it's their color intensity is so bright, and they make no mess. Pastels make mess. You breathe it in, you can get freaking cancer. You know, there's like lead poisoning. I mean, pastels, I really only do pastels outside now. Color pencils offer very similar color effect, not quite as intense in terms of layering, but you know, you get your color fix without getting a mess. All right, let's go ahead and draw this. Boom. Boom. Good. Finally a break. And as I'm looking at this larger lily pad, I mean, I can see where there's more greens. I need to have a blue green. And then, or maybe not, maybe that's this green plus the blue. And then this one feels like there's a lavender in there too. Some of the lavender that's in the petals really feels like it's on the border. Lavender. Oof. And you know what these guys were doing was just kind of experimenting, and you know, let this be an excuse to experiment with your colors. Yeah, there's just a ballpark. There's not right or wrong. This little gutter, so good. Oh, Maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one. What could be the one, the green in the middle? The textures. It's this one. It's too much. Too intense. Regular green. This is where I got to be careful. We've got some beautiful stems happening.
Yeah.
Two little stem notes here. So my blue, I have to design the blue around them. I don't know what I'm missing in my lily pad. Maybe it's the purple. Maybe it's magenta. Maybe it's a darker purple. Oh. Look at all this reddish. Oh, I even have room for my guy. Oh, barely, barely. I can't get over how red this top right-hand corner is.
Mm.
Jeez.
Looks like I missed out on that one. A little lavender. Look at this little lavender guy up here. Oh, I miss him. No, I didn't miss him. There he is. Yeah. Yeah, these interactions, these color interactions are really delightful. Let's see where my blender goes. I need a soft purple. Here we go. I think this could do it. Say a quick one. Yes, there, see it? There it is. Everywhere.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a little bit. My initial magenta was perfect for that violet, gray, lavender rather, was perfect for the flowers. But this is what's this one called? Parma violet. And that feels like it's penetrating the water too. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it seems like it moves over into the behind, at least on the right side. Man, I don't know about the left side. I mean, frankly, this would be way easier with oil paint. It would be. But it's also really beautiful with the color pencils. But I feel like it has to be done. Well, we'll see. I don't know. And if you sit back and don't compare it, just like look at your own drawing, I think you'll find. I mean, if I hide it and just look at what I did, it is kind of pretty, and it's still my style. You know, like I'm not Monet. I'm not trying to be Monet, but those are definitely some. He's a good place to step off from. Because he's like a perfect artist in the sense that he has such an insight into nature, but then he's also a master designer. So I mean, he knows he's got such good design taste. So we're yeah, I mean, he just turned himself into nature. I don't want to say that I've bitten off more than I can chew, but I mean, even what's here, I mean, I just try to get an area covered, but you can get so wonderfully caught up in in these flowers. I mean, this was just very, I don't like to say superficial because it wasn't superficial, but I mean, I don't need to expand anymore. This could keep me occupied for days, just with this. I mean, just getting allowing yourself to analyze every petal, because you're studying him, but you're also studying the flowers too. Maybe not days, but it looks like there's even some orange notes in here, the yellow and the red. Yeah, it's like the yellow is kind of set off by this high intensity orange. Do you see that in there? I mean, I could, maybe I should zoom in again. But you see it, it has these basic colors, but then you look further and it's got more. And then you look more, and then you add those and you look more and you realize it's got more. And then, then you just get into these like deep level understanding that you would not have had unless you tried to draw this way. Leave it up to my blender. Kind of soften those edges between the blue and the petals and the green. Yeah, but I'm finding myself wanting to pixelate it. The one loose brush stroke gives you that variety. With pencil, you have to create it in a different way than a loose brush stroke. And you almost have to like draw the looseness. Where there's just trace amounts of certain colors, and you have to apply them rather than almost like when you're on your palette, you're making, painting, grabbing colors from all over. A lot of those moments can be accidental. I'm wondering if my white would show up. Yeah. So my white won't show. This is a job for the whiteout. Do I dare? I know where it is. I know where the whiteout is. See if I have a little brush. I used to have the littlest, daintiest brush. It's like someday.
We're gonna put white out.
Well, you see these little light highlights on top of the lily pads?
Mhm.
I don't want to use it there. Monet. Maybe it wasn't the best decision of all time, but the worst. That dries fast. Good God. Not coming back from that one. Anybody wanna? We're getting close here. Anybody want to show what they got so far?
Love to see what everybody's doing.
Yeah. Easiest today. Oh, I just colored over that thing. God. Here, let's just make life easier.
Stay.
So see if I'm on the right track.
Off, Tucker.
You want to pin me or?
Yes. I gotta stop the share. Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah, can you hold that up just a little bit higher?
Oh, higher. Yeah. Goodness, look at those.
That
That's
background is amazing.
Thank you.
The what?
The background.
cool.
Mm.
The
Yeah,
blue-
your flowers really pop. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
Okay. Yay.
This might be the gateway drug to colors.
Yeah, this might be. I feel a lot better than I was starting out.
All right, Adele, let's see yours.
Oops, wait a minute. This is very.
There you go. Wow.
Oh,
Nice. Ooh, your
Wow.
colors are
Oh,
beautiful.
transparent. Yeah, nice treatment. I like that.
Oh.
Like the lily pads have some more form, which is really nice too.
Your
Yeah.
petals are beautiful.
So beautiful. Did you?
Really pretty.
I didn't even look at like regular. Did you look up regular lily pads? Did you see them like a
No.
picture photo?
Yeah, I did.
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh, nice! I had that same koosh ball. I had that same basketball net in my room in my house. Yeah,
Gone through generations of kids.
I was gonna say, yeah. If you ever want to sell that thing, I'm the buyer. I used to think, oh man, yeah. But I got my nephew the same thing for Christmas, and I was like, I wish we just had the koosh one. Yeah, I sunk so many baskets in there, unbelievable. All right, Stace, let's see it.
You want to have like a laugh of the day? Sure.
No,
Yeah.
I would never.
No, you know, I don't have any words, so. Oh, yeah, Renee, you're chuckling.
No,
Okay,
I'm chuckling because I have no words. This was hard.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, look at the darkness.
Yeah, you really. I mean, that really moves back. It snakes back.
Yeah.
That's so. With all your test strip too. Dag.
Hmm.
And the dark, did you put any black around the flowers for them to pop out so nicely?
Just
The dark
Yeah.
blue.
and
I
Yeah.
just shouldn't have mixed my stuff.
Let's see it, Maureen.
Nice.
Let's see it.
I don't want to show you. It's terrible.
Renee,
Terrible.
I did.
Pretty pleased with sugar on top.
God,
Oh,
Yeah, it's so nice.
Renee.
lovely, so sweet.
why do you not like that?
Well, Maureen, I know
It's
what
nice.
you're going through. I know you're going through because like it looks great on the screen, but
Yeah.
like what you see in person is not good. Like I've done that so many. I in fact, when I teach the kids class, I will start off with pencil and go into color pencil. And I
Big
know,
mistake.
I
Yeah.
know that, but I know that it looks like garbage, but you can't tell on the screen.
Well, I had to go back and outline the petals because you can't see the white and you couldn't see my pencil. And, every time I tried to correct it, I was just like, I'd really love to sketch this over. And
Yeah.
send it to you.
I like it,
Yeah.
Rini. I like the fairy-like, waif-like feeling it has. I like it very much. That's how I prefer to draw in color anyway.
Well, you're really sweet to say that, Grace. Thank you.
Well, what we learned from Grace and Stacy is how deep you can get that background color.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten there yet, and mine is
No.
still just, diagonal lines with, inflections of other colors. It doesn't have that deep intensity yet.
Well, and I'm really limited. I don't have the best colored pencil sets. I've got 2 or 3 here and they're not that
Yeah.
great. And, I think doing this on dark paper with white chalk, I'd love to try that. So,
Oh yeah, that's.
I
for
think,
sure.
I'm thinking about that too. The even like going darker than the one that Grace is working on, like actually go like almost like kind of scary dark. You're like, ooh, is this dark drawing? And
yeah, that'd be fun.
yeah,
How about black and white chalk on gray paper?
yeah. I mean, but like the color pencils aren't. I mean, color pencils is just, it's so nice. I mean, the colors that you can get in those flowers. Everyone got really beautiful colors in the flowers.
Well, and you taught me this, Trevor, because I've got watercolor pencils. And you
Ooh,
said to me you could go
Oh.
back with a wet brush and go over it. And
is
I
that
did
what?
that with another flower that I drew. It was a dolly. It turned out beautiful. After
Oh,
I
wow.
had no idea you could do that,
Wow, that's
So-
really cool.
Did you do
Yeah.
that with these? Did you actually paint over it with?
I did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually painted over it. And it was big and it made the paper kind of warp a little bit, but
Right.
the colors really popped. It was
They do.
nice.
I mean, and that's what they're and like that's the thing. It's like that's what they're supposed to be. That's what you're
Yeah,
supposed to
I had no
do.
clue.
It's like, you got nothing to lose, especially if you're like feel like you're frustrated anyway. It's like go for it.
Why don't you show us the dolly?
The what?
You
The
have
dolly.
do you have that other piece handy or no?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have to dig through my junk. I'll try to find it. I'll send it to you.
All right.
It's tucked away somewhere.
I'm gonna end a little bit early today because I need to
That's
go
fine.
finish doing these frames at the
I gotta
studio.
go anyway.
I will thank you guys so much. Please, if you don't mind sending pictures of whatever state you wind up in, I would love that because these I'm gonna post them on the Instagram because they're so pretty. So please send pics.
Thank you for your encouragement.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you so much.
Thanks for
Bye,
the-
everybody.
Thanks for buying in. I appreciate it.
I
See ya.
Thanks, T.